Okay, so for tonight's homework, we have a worksheet with 4 problems. That's it, just 4. Labeled writing equations. So you'll see I put the date, so I know it's tonight's homework. A couple very important formulas we need to know for this: y equals mx plus b, which is how we write the equation for lines, and then y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and you'll see how I use that to find the slope. So this first one here, Mr. Lewis did in class. The second one we did in class, so you really just have to do 3 and 4. But if you didn't get these, make sure you get them now while I have it up there, and I'm going to go through them quickly. So it wants us to find the slope of the line through each pair of points. Well, we know that we can find the slope by plugging in the points to this formula here. So I'm actually going to highlight that so it stands out for all of you. This formula right here. Okay? So the very first thing I want you to do, it's so important, it seems like extra work, I know, but I want you to label each of your points. x1, y1, x2, y2. If you look, this is our first point. That's what this 1 represents. This is our second point. That's what the 2 represents. So our x-coordinate on the x-axis for our second point, and the y-coordinate, the y-axis, for our second point. So before you do anything, do this with me. Go and look at number 3 and 4, which we have not done, and label your points. Here I have x1, y1, x2, y2, x1, y1, x2, y2. And that's just going to help us plug it into this formula so we get the proper slope. Okay, so let's see if I can scoot this up and do number 3 and still give you enough room. Actually, I'm going to go through 1 and 2. So, again, the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you look, Mr. Lewis plugged y2 there, y1 there, over x2 here minus x1 there. He came up with negative 24 over 3, which simplifies to negative 8. So we know that our slope is negative 8. And remember, in y equals mx plus b, m is your slope, b is your y-intercept. So let's keep going, just stick with me. So negative 8, I know that my m is negative 8. I'm going to plug it in here. This 9 and 11, if you look at y equals mx plus b, your x is one of your x points. So he chose 11. See that? X, 11. So the slope, negative 8. X, which is 11, plus b, we don't know what the y-intercept is, and then his y, he got from his y of that same point. So you see that? That's where he gets the 11 and the 9 from. So let's solve it. Negative 8 times 11 is negative 88. So he has 9 equals negative 88 plus b. The opposite of a negative 88 is a positive 88. We're trying to solve for b and get b by itself, so I'm going to add 88 to both sides. 9 plus 88 is 97. So my final equation for this ordered pair is y equals 8x plus 97. That's your full answer. It's a multi-step problem, but this is your full answer. So again, if you don't already have that from class today, get it now. And number 2, I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 3. Make sure we have plenty of time. So my formula, again, to find slope, that's the first step, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 is 2. Minus y1, which is 18, over x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is 1. What do I get here? 2 minus 18 is a negative 16. 2 minus 1 is 1. So negative 16 over 1 is really just negative 16. That is my slope. M equals negative 16. If it helps you, can always write m equals negative 16. So I know my slope. So now that I know my slope, I can plug it in, just like I did up here, to my y equals mx plus b. So I know that my slope, my m, is negative 16. A y point, I'm going to use these 2s. They seem pretty easy. 2. And then my slope, negative 16. My x for that same point is 2 plus b. I'm trying to solve for b. So negative 16 times 2, a negative times a positive is negative. And 16 times 2 is 32 plus b. I just rewrite it and bring everything down. And then I have a negative 32, the opposite of a negative, and I'm kind of running off the screen here. I'm going to scoot this up. The opposite of a negative 32 is a positive 32. And remember, I have to do it to both sides of the equation. So these cancel out. I'm left with b equals 2 plus 32 is 34. So my b, my slope-intercept is 34. Now that I have my m and my b, I can write my equation, which is y equals negative 16x plus 34. Okay, number 3 is done for you. Let's do number 4 together. Make sure we got it. We already labeled our points. Again, that's like the first very important start of all of it. So I'm going to pull this back down. y2 minus y1. My y2 is negative 14 minus y1, which is negative 10. I'm going to put parentheses there just so I don't forget. Okay, and then x2 minus 12, which is x1. And then I'm going to solve it negative 14 minus negative 10. Remember, anytime we have a minus a negative number, it really turns into a plus. So negative 14 plus 10 is just a negative 4. I started at negative 14, and then I added 10. 20 minus 12 is 8. This can then be reduced. Negative 4 over 8 is negative 1 over 2. I just simplified it, so my m equals negative 1 over 2. Ta-da! There's our slope. Easy peasy. Okay, now I need to plug in my inputs and my outputs, and there's some big negative numbers. So you guys, if you need to grab a calculator, grab a calculator. Don't hesitate. But I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to get my slope-intercept form equation of the line. Let me see if this gets unblurred. There we go. So y equals mx plus b. Again, I know my m. So my y, I'm going to do negative 10. Negative 1/2 times an x, which is 12, plus b. Okay, guys, I'm going to pull out my calculator. Again, you guys, don't be ashamed. So I know I have a negative times a positive, so I'm going to get a negative. And 6, which makes sense. If I have halves and I multiply it by 12 of them, I end up with 6 wholes, so negative 6 plus b, negative 10 there. Okay, so I'm trying to find out what b is, my y-intercept. So to get b by itself, I need to get rid of this 6, and it's negative 6. So the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6 on both sides. Negative 10 plus 6, negative 10, and then I add 6 to that is a negative 4. So guess what? Our b equals negative 4. That's an important detail. And then I end up with my equation of the line, y equals negative 1/2 x minus 4. Just plugging in what we already solved. I'm going to box it in because there's my answer. And you guys, our homework is done. Let me see if I can zoom out so you can copy this all down in case you didn't get it all in class or now. Just a minute. I think that's about all of it. You guys, important things to know. Y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b. That is slope-intercept form. That's the equation of a line. Y equals mx plus b. M is our slope. B is our y-intercept. Okay? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is how we find the slope between two lines. That is how we find the slope between two lines. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. To be completely honest, I don't have any tricks for remembering that. You just have to remember it. But if it helps you, think about where your points. Think about a graph. I'm going to draw you a little picture. Think about your graph. Think of where your points fall. If you need to, point them and then count out. You know, your rise over your run. Okay? Anyways, that's it, you guys. Good job. Your homework is done. Woohoo!